Sander. Look, and I want to make it very clear to Man City fans here, and I'll probably get bloody clipped, but I want to make it very, very clear that for Man City in a Champions League semi-final in 2023 is an absolute fantasy in 2008. There's one reason you're doing this, and that's wealth, super wealth. And I've ridiculed it, and I've said it's a cheat code, and it is, but please give it to my club, and I'm sure there's a lot of other fans out there going, look, I don't like super wealth, I don't like how it's a cheat code, but if I want to be successful, and I want to see my team be successful, tell me how you compete with that and what we've just witnessed in 45 minutes. It is the way. It is the only way. There is no moral compass. Klopp's tried and it falls apart. You might do it for 1 year. Arteta's tried, not been good enough. You want to compete with this Man City side, you've got to do what this Man City side has done. Super wealth with the obsession to be the best, and they are absolutely obliterating everybody else because they've got they've got what everybody else hasn't got at the moment. They've got years of doing it. This is not a scratch and sniff. This is a foundation build over a decade to get to this point. This is try and test and try, and they've took their time, and now those foundations are strong, and that's why they've won 3 Premier Leagues in a row, and that's why I'll predict they'll win it next year. Could they be the first team to do a double treble? Like, could they be the first team to do a quadruple? To deny it is idiocy. I just think that, you know what? It's absolutely spot on. Newcastle have got it. It will take them. Newcastle can't compete with Man City. They're as rich, but they can't compete with them yet because they've got to build the foundations. Obviously, my club, Man United, are going through a sale process at the moment. We don't have any say in what happens, but the reason I want super wealth and a full sale and good Glazers out is because I want to try and compete with that Man City side at some point in my life. We won't be competing with them for the next 4 or 5 years, even if we get super wealth. Neither will Newcastle. But if you don't start the process, you'll never beat the process. And I guarantee that Arsenal fans know this. Chelsea fans know this. Liverpool fans know this. Jurgen Klopp knows it. Ten Hag's hinted at it. It might be a dirty word, but you know what? I've said this before. It's like doing an exam and saying, Miss, or Mister, or whatever they want to be called. They've got the cheat code. They've got the cheat. They've got the answers. They've got the answers. And it's like the teacher saying, I know. It's in the rules that they can. Why don't you get the answers as well? Oh, morally, it doesn't sit right with me. I'm just going to study and try my best. But you won't get everything right, and they will. I know. But in my mind, at least I know my morals are okay. Well, you're an idiot. There's the cheat. There's the answers. Get the answers. For a tenner, you can have the answers. You've got to take the answers. You've got to take it. And I've spent a lot of time taking the piss out of Man City, and I don't like it. And somebody's just called me a sellout. DJ, you're actually right. You're actually right. Everybody who wants their club to be run like Man City and Newcastle is a sellout. But are they also not a realist? Because, my kids support Man United. Most of us who support Man United or Liverpool or Chelsea would hope that we've got another few years supporting our club before we leave this place. Do you want to just sit back and go, you may as well walk away from football, actually. It's not being a sellout. You may as well walk away from football. If you don't want your club to compete with Manchester City, then you don't want super wealth. Then you may as well just get your DVDs out and UK Gold and watch when your team was good, because it ain't going to be good. You can't compete with it. So, just the way football is. This is why the Super League was mentioned. It's unhealthy because it means that teams like Brighton and Brentford and Fulham and maybe the Evertons of this world, if Man United gets super wealth, Man City have got it, Newcastle have got it, a couple of others get it, how do they compete? But it's just what football is. The byproduct of it is you get this. It's a pretty good team playing pretty good football with a pretty good manager. It's the world we live in. The only positive here is that we have it in our hands to stop City from doing the treble, says Alias. It's a properly run club. Rest of us have had a rough 10 years in one way or another. Bad transfers, etc. Says Gav. Bar Grealish, City don't spend 50 million per player. It's about recruitment of players and staff, not super wealth. Man United spend most out of English teams, says Moose. You're just wrong, Moose. That's his second rubbish chat of the night. How's it not about super wealth? They went from being a club that was flirting with relegation and played in League One to a club that's now on the verge of a treble in the space of, 15 years? How's it not about super wealth, mate? You just own what you are. Like, most Man United fans want this now. Most other clubs want it. Why do you have to pretend you're not what you are? Like, we're agreeing that this is the way football's going and you're ahead of the game. Don't pretend you've done it on a budget. Camavinga seems terrible at defending, says Nemo. Well, they've all been bad today. What about when everyone was saying that this Man City team was worse with Haaland compared to last year's team? Would you walk that back, says Anthony? No. I think that's a great football point. I'll come back to that. Mark, Man United will be extra super wealthy compared to City and Newcastle. They're coming from a better initial stage, says Andrew Grange. Mark, you need to give me credit for giving you that teacher cheating exam analogy since that morning show. Love the content. Keep it up, says Ashan. If you gave it me, Ashan, you can have the shout out. Thank you very much. I go back to that because I've said it and I don't pretend that I don't say things. I did say that I felt that Man City were a worse team this year than last year with Erling Haaland in it. And, ultimately, I am going to get proved wrong if they win the treble. But there was an element of truth to that because at that time, I'd seen Man United beat them and I'd seen Spurs beat them and I'd watched Man City a lot. And it was getting to the point where if you shut Haaland down, Man City had a problem. I mean, look, this Man City team drew against Forest. They've lost at home to Brentford. What people cannot refuse is that Man City have gone through a transition. And there was a vulnerability about Man City until about February. They were a little bit vulnerable. It seems ridiculous now, because now they're better than any Man City side there's ever been, really. But up until about February, they were adjusting to Haaland. And if you shut Haaland down, they really didn't have anything else. But what you're seeing now is Bernardo Silva scoring 2, Gundogan at the weekend. That transition is over. This is Man City now. I think from August to February, they were still working it all out. And there were some vulnerabilities. But since February, and, to be honest, since the Chargers came out, which seems to have just given them this siege mentality, they've been pretty much unstoppable. I mean, how many games in a row have they won in the Premier League? 11? They're destroying the Champions League holders. They're resting half their team and battering a team at home that's fighting relegation. They're on a different planet. They're not going through transition anymore, and they're a much better team than they were last season. But I think there were people try and rewrite history. I've watched the game. I've played the game. I've watched Man City this season, and there has at times been transition and therefore vulnerability. But since February, it's completely disappeared. And they're not totally reliant on Haaland now. Haaland's still scoring the goals, but they're not totally reliant on him. Other people are scoring the goals. I mean, look, in fairness, well, it's not fair to say it, but you could argue that in a way, Real Madrid have shut Haaland down. But Bernardo Silva scored 2 goals. So they're getting goals from elsewhere. I don't actually think they've shut Haaland down either. I think Haaland should have 2 goals, but a goalkeeper's made 2 great saves. Sam says that super wealth isn't just about spending a lot on transfers. It's about spending large on infrastructure, facilities, recruitment and training, which is something Man City have done very well. You're spot on. If City play at their peak, can any team in the world beat them, says Avash. My dad said this reminds him of somewhat of a Liverpool versus Barca in terms of domination, says Funky. Yeah, look, and Mark, I'm a United fan, although I agree with you about City having mega wealth, United's downfall is more mismanagement. Yeah, 100% nil. Glazers have been a shithouse ownership. What's the point in Leicester winning the Premier League when big teams can just buy their players and weaken them? If you don't put money in, you're always going to be small, says Grealish. Yeah, 100%.